Darren has written in and says, "Hi, Dutch and James. This question is to both of you to answer, in your opinion. Who had more star power and who was more over with the fans, the Hulkster or the Texas Rattlesnake?" I would say, I won't even say what he says after that. So, the Hulkster or Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan. So,
you want
who's
me to
more
answer?
over with the fans?
You want to answer?
No, you go. I'll answer afterwards if you wish.
I'll say it's Austin. I say that Austin was over more. Now Hogan was over, but I don't think he was over like Steve Austin was over.
What
Steve
parameters are we
Austin,
setting
Steve
here?
Austin,
Are we
Steve
setting
Austin.
just in wrestling, or are we setting in the wider world on this?
Set it in the wider world. I think Austin still beats him. I really do. What do you say?
I'll say Hogan. Because
Then you're wrong.
I still think Hogan's more recognizable even to this day. I don't think a lot of the civilians, the non-wrestling fans, would recognize who Steve Austin was, but they would know who Hulk Hogan was. I think I'm going more towards a fame aspect there. I still think Hogan drew more money over a longer period of time than Steve Austin, but it's undeniable that Steve Austin was the single greatest draw in wrestling history. But I still think.
So who you going? Who are you going with?
By the parameters, I'm sort of setting myself in like who's more famous to the wider world. I think it's Hulk Hogan.
I'll say Steve Austin. And I had connections with both of them years before they ever achieved stardom. Hogan, Hogan did what I call I don't know what I'm going to call it, but he did cartoon wrestling, basically, working the people and
showmanship.
Well, he did that and it worked for him. And he did draw a lot of money. But also Hogan, you got to look at their opponents too. Hogan had the match with Andre. Well, hell, that's a matchup made in heaven. Who's going to win this one? But
Hogan over a longer period of time had the better opponents. And I'm sure people say, well, Steve Austin had The Rock and Steve Austin had Triple H or whoever.
Yeah, that's true.
The fact is,
that's
Hogan
true.
had.
Who did Hogan have? Hogan had,
man, just
Andre.
Everyone. The fact they were working so many more dates in the 80s compared to the late 90s. And that's, the late 90s was a busy period.
I think the late 90s, they had a lot of dates too.
Oh, they had a lot of dates, absolutely. But the late 80s to the early 90s was, I believe, you were getting 2 days off a month or something crazy. That might be a slight exaggeration.
It was crazy.
But yeah,
I know
because Hulk Hogan had.
Yeah, I worked 64 straight days before I went home one time. It was working a lot of days, crazy days. I should have just quit, walked out. You know who quit and walked out? You know who quit and walked out?
Stan Lane did, I think.
Stan Lane. He got to Canada.
Oh, I guessed it.
Yeah, you did. Why did you guess that?
I think I may have heard the story before. He just cracked.
He said, "Fuck it, I'm not doing it no more. I'm going nuts. I'm leaving." We were on a Canada tour, a Canada tour, we called it, and we were up in Newfoundland, New Brunswick, up in there. Oh my God, I don't know why more people don't kill themselves up there. That is the most boringest place. I mean, the people that live there may disagree with me, but if you're coming in to work wrestling shows, there's nothing to do there. And it's very, very boring and cold and icy and snowing. I was at one show there. They closed it down because it's not the wrestling stunk to join out, but they had some machine that was leaking a chemical. And so they had to say, we can't use the building. And the wrestlers cheered. Oh, good. I don't want to go to that town anyway. And Canadian fans at that time, I thought, were harder to arouse. They're not really, they may get up for hockey and holler and scream and carry on, but for wrestling, for WWF at that time, nah, they just sit
WCW.
there. What'd you say? ECW.
WCW. No, WCW.
I'm trying to think who I went there with.
Well, if you were
Because
Stan Lane, it would have been WCW.
okay, then I went with there. But I got my share of Newfoundland during that tour. So I never had a desire to go back.
What was it about that tour that Stan Lane, was there like one incident where Stan Lane was like, right, I'm done? Or
No, we made this trip. Cornette pulled on a wrestling up on a railroad track, and he's playing a rip. And he pulled up there, and all of a sudden he turned the car off. I'm in the back seat on the right side. Train was coming toward me. And he goes, I said, Jimmy. Now I start screaming. And this train is coming at us. Finally, he got it going and pulled off the track. I was so friggin' mad. And I love Jimmy, but I wanted to pull his ass out and beat. And I think Bobby Eaton was driving. Cornette thought that was the funniest thing in the fucking world. I said, what can be funny about an impending death? Your own. And he said, he thought it was the funniest thing in the world. I think the day after that, I think Stan said, screw this, I'm going home. And he just left. He didn't tell anybody he was leaving. He just left. So I don't blame him.
Someone's going to send this to Jim Cornette for his
care.
podcast to address. So no, I'm not saying you've said anything out of school. I'm saying I wonder if his recollection of exactly when Stan Lane, because he'll have like a book and say, like to the date.
Yeah,
or like the reason or whatever.